Welcome to the DFS Build. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We're going to go over the 7-game slate for Tuesday, March 12th at DraftKings. Lots to talk about. We're going to try to keep it at 30 minutes today and help you out going game by game and pointing you to the best plays of this slate. This video is sponsored by DFS Hero, a really nice lineup optimizer that can help you score a takedown. Right now, you can get it for 15% off using our link, which can be found in the video description below. All right, Taylor, first game here, we have the Sixers and the Knicks at the Madison Square Garden. 208 total is pretty ugly. Philly does have Tyrese Maxey back. De'Anthony Melton remains out. That's really the only injury news for the Sixers. So in theory, Maxey looks pretty good, and there could be options here. I just don't know if we need them. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm not getting much at all. I think these teams combined for like 150 points the other day when they played, so it's just disgusting potentially. The most I'm getting to is Maxey, but out of 5,000 lineups I built, I'm getting him in 17 of them, so not really much at all. Tobias is overpriced for Maxey being back. Philly looks like a team to ignore.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only guy that would stand up for me is Maxey, but he has a boom rating under 10%. He doesn't even have a 48-point fantasy projection. It just doesn't look like an amazing spot. So on the other side are the Knicks. Jalen Brunson leads the way at 9.3K, a little bit more expensive than Maxey. He projects better than Maxey and does have a 17% boom rating, but as you kind of alluded to, it doesn't feel like the most amazing game environment. Do you like Brunson tonight, and are there any other Knicks guys on your radar?
I don't mind the price on him. 9.3 is a little less than we've been paying over the last few weeks, but his minutes have been down in the 2 games since he came back, 32 in the last one. So he's like the one Nick that doesn't seem to be in line for a full allotment right now. That could come up tonight. He could play 34, 35, but, gross game environment, low total. The guys I do like are DiVincenzo at 6'9" and Hart at 7'2". Just because the minutes are more secure, I'm getting to more DiVincenzo right now, just because he's a little cheaper than Hart. Doesn't look like he will be under the radar. I think he has the highest projected ownership of anyone in this game, so I'll probably be in line with the field. Not really a hard take either way on him.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but OG is returning tonight, so I'm a little bit worried about him impacting Hart and DiVincenzo to some degree. I think they're both fine plays if you land on them. I just personally will not be prioritizing them on this slate.
I think OG is officially questionable. So, I said he's supposed to return, but officially not in yet. But yeah, if he's in, then I have less interest in OG. In DiVincenzo.
Expected to return. So obviously, if he's out, I would be with you more on DiVincenzo and Hart. The next guys, it's all about, can we trust they're going to get that 35 plus minutes? And if so, they're always going to be in play to some degree, especially with their prices coming down. But if he's back, I probably would be out on the Knicks as a whole. I'm probably just going to fade this game. There's 7 games here tonight. And there's clear value and there's clear top plays. So I personally am probably just going to be out on the game. A big reason why is this next game, Wizards and Grizz. Obviously, anytime the Grizzlies are on the board, we have reluctance to do anything involved with them, but they do offer a lot of value on their side. And they themselves have a pretty good matchup against the Wiz, arguably the best matchup of the slate. Real quick for Washington, Marvin Bagley, Rashawn Holmes, Landry Shamet, all out. And Memphis side is even murkier. Jaren Jackson Jr. and Vince Williams are both out. And they have a bunch of questionable guys. I believe Scottie Pippen Jr. is doubtful. And then Jordan Goodwin, Lamar Stevens, and John Conchar are all iffy for this game. So the Wizards pop really well, which is a little bit surprising based off of Memphis being kind of slower and defensive-minded team at this point. But they look really good. So how are you feeling about the Wiz?
Yeah, famous last words, but I do like the Wizards quite a bit. The minutes are going to be there. Like Kuzma started at center in the last game with Bagley and Holmes out. They played every starter at least 35 minutes. And Jordan Poole got 23 off the bench. No one else got more than 11. So it's a pretty condensed rotation right now, which I guess is the source of intrigue here. Kispert should start with those centers out. Looks outstanding at 5K flat. Kuz at 8K playing center. Happy to get there. Tyus Jones for 6'2". No qualms with that. Even Avdi at 7K should be a little overlooked compared to the other guys. I don't mind him either. And then Koulibaly's some chalk I might be inclined to get away from just because he has a really low floor, kind of a week per minute guy. But he did play 36 minutes in the last game, and he's under 5K. So I see the merit to pretty much all of them.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the Wizards are playing their starters pretty big minutes in the last couple of games here, and obviously these guys being out only helps that. So Kuz looks awesome. I don't know if I can fade Kuz at this price, pushing for 47 fantasy points for his projection, 38% boom rating. He is going to be owned. And like I said, Memphis is not really an amazing matchup technically. This game total is only 219, so it's not, it doesn't blow you away. But he looks really good. I think I'm with you. Everybody else is fine. If you get to Denny, Poole, Tyus, that's fine. I don't think those three guys are really on my radar personally, although Tyus does still feel cheap. Kispert at 5K, he is scoring dependent, but I really like Kispert here. I mean, famous last words for sure. But for me, it's going to be Kuz. And then for value, I do like Kispert. I do think if his ownership just really spikes, that might get me to be underweight or get off of him in single entries. But he and the rest of these Wizards do look good. On the other side, obviously, the Grizzlies actually have the way better matchup in this game. They have a 108 total for their team, and they're down a bunch of guys. They could end up having, I believe, an 8-man rotation for this game. So that would be like 8 bodies in general. It could be 8 or 9. I can't recall. But they're shorthanded. So we should have some interest here. Who are you liking for Memphis with that in mind?
Yeah, with Jackson and Williams out, Jaren Jackson, we saw Gregory Jackson start the last game and play 38 minutes. He's still only 5'6". I think he's in line for a big role, and it's the best matchup imaginable. So he's the standout, I think. He seems like he's safe regardless of whether the game gets out of hand, which it shouldn't. It's not like the Wizards are good either. So good spot for him. Kennard, not on the injury report. I think if Conchar and or Goodwin are out, he could play 30-plus minutes. 5K flat, don't mind that, especially if he's going to be kind of lower owned than some of the Wizards and stuff in that price range. Laravia has been playing more lately. He's only 5'2", don't mind that. I was going to point out this Dijon Giroux guy that played 28 minutes in the last game, but he's up to 5'2". He'll probably get burned if Goodwin or Conchar are out again, but for 5'2" off the bench, I don't think I can pull the trigger on that. And I guess Lamar Stevens is worth a shot at 5'1" as a lower-owned value piece. There are a ton of plays in the 5K range, so he shouldn't be too popular if he's in. So I think that is a decent value for tournaments.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm looking at Laravia and Jackson mostly here. It's weird because none of these guys project very well. They really project horribly. Laravia is the highest owned Grizz at the moment, so maybe if you want to play the ownership game, you can get off of him and flip it over to Kennard or just use a guy from a different team. But I think if you're going to play one Grizz, it's going to be GG Jackson for me. 5.6K is a little bit too cheap if he's starting and pushing for that many minutes all of a sudden, and obviously the matchup too. But really, you can talk yourself into anybody here if they're going to be this shorthanded. So Grizz, it feels gross, but the Grizz do look good. Moving on to the Pacers and Thunder in OKC. The Thunder are 6-point favorites. This game is a really, really nice 241 total, highest total of the slate. That is thanks to Indy and their fast-paced ways and also their lack of defense. So we should at least be looking at this game, especially for max entering. We definitely should have some exposure. For the Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton, kind of too cheap at 9K still. But so how do you feel about him, and are there any other Pacers that you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm not really getting there. I think Shea on the other side is kind of the guard I want to pay up for on this slate. So Halliburton probably slips through the cracks for me. I think Siakam and Turner at 7-3 and 6-3 are the guys I like more. Siakam's price just keeps coming down. Small forward, power forwards, helpful eligibility. So I don't mind that. These are 2 top 8 teams in pace, so there should be points in this one. It's really those two, maybe some Jalen Smith as a punt, as always, and Nesmith. Minute should be there for him with Mathurin out for the season, but don't really see a major priority. Siakam is the one I like the most.
Yeah, I'm not going out of my way to prioritize any of them, but I'm with you. Hallie, Siakam, Miles, and then maybe a sprinkling of Nesmith with Mathurin out. Those guys are all the ones I'd be looking at. But they look okay. I just don't know if they're going to be priorities. OKC, SGA leads the way with 10.5K salary, 52-point projection, and 21% boom rating. His price is making him not very owned. Also, obviously, we have Giannis and some other big names on the slate. But that is a little bit interesting that he's sub 10% owned on this slate in this matchup. By the way, Jalen Williams is questionable for this game. Let's just check. Oh, he was at shoot around, so maybe he'll end up playing. I think that, I mean, obviously if he's out, that makes SGA and Chet look a lot better and opens up value for OKC. I still like SGA a lot if he's in. How do you feel about OKC yourself?
Yeah, I think Williams at 6'9" is good if he's in, just because the matchup's outstanding against Indiana, who has the, I think, second fastest pace and like the worst paint defense in the league. So he should do whatever he wants. Shea should do whatever he wants. Holmgren, 7'5", like he's kind of hovering around that range. I think he's fine, but not a priority. Giddey for 5'6", just because he's a good per minute guy. The minutes are shaky, but I don't mind that as a tournament value, especially if he's going to go under the radar compared to some of the other kind of 5 to 6K value options on this slate. SGA looks good, but I think now that we have this Celtics news, it's probably going to be Jason Tatum among the high-end spends with Jaylen Brown and Porzingis out. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Chet's minutes have been kind of wonky. I'm not like super gaga to run over and play Chet. I think the only thing appealing about Chet at this point is the price and the matchup. So he's a tournament play. He's totally fine. But I'm not locking him in or prioritizing him by any means. I think if I do play anybody for OKC, it would end up being value like Giddey or Dort if Jalen is out, or I'd pay up for SGA. All right, Rockets are going to be popping in your lineup optimizers, and rightfully so. They're facing the Spurs, who are terrible. Obviously, Şengün being out opens up a crap ton of usage for Houston. FVV leads the way with a 44-point projection and a 34% boom rating, but they have 5 guys north of 24% boom ratings, so they pop really, really well. Who do you like the most for Houston tonight?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's Dillon Brooks, just like everyone else. He's 4'3". He's just really cheap guard forward eligibility, so you can play him in a bunch of spots. He gets a nice 4% usage boost without Şengün. I am hesitant to play Dillon Brooks chalk, but it is a good matchup against San Antonio, so I get it. Jalen Green gets a 9.4% usage boost. VanVleet's a 4.2% bump, so I see the merit to both. Jabari for 6'6" might fly under the radar a little bit compared to some of the other ones. If you want to fade either Green or VanVleet and play him instead, I don't think that's a bad strategy in a tournament. Amen Thompson is a guy I will be getting to plenty as well at 4'9", just because he's an awesome per minute guy too. So yeah, a lot of interest in the Rockets. Jeff Green is like projected to start among industry people. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Landale just because of Wemby in this game. So I guess Landale and Green are viable punts, but neither is really like a true punt. So yeah, not super psyched about paying mid-4s for either of them.
No, I think whoever starts, they're playable because they're still cheap enough and they should play 30-plus minutes. But Jeff Green does fucking nothing out there. And Landale, I don't know how confident we can be in that either. He's even more expensive than Jeff Green. They're fine if you want to use them, whichever one starts. I think Jalen Green and Jabari Smith especially are excellent leverage plays in this when you're looking at the Rockets. I don't want to talk anybody off of Fred VanVleet because he has the best projection for Houston and he's super owned for a reason. But if he's going to be 30% owned and maybe a lot more than that in single entries, I would entertain the idea of fading and going and getting some leverage with Jalen Green and or Jabari Smith. Because it's not like Fred VanVleet is immune to just absolute clunker outings. He definitely can do that. But I will say, in 3 meetings with the Spurs this year, he's averaged 47 fantasy points per game. So it's definitely a good spot, and it's a spot that he has flourished in. So across the board, the Rockets look really good. I'm not going to talk anybody off of them in general, but yeah, the Dillon Brooks chalk doesn't feel great. On the other side, Wemby at 10.6. He did play last night. He played pretty normal minutes. He didn't seem limited, so I'm encouraged by that. It is the second leg of a back-to-back. So, there is always the possibility he could be somewhat limited for this game. But it looks really good for him with Şengün out. And he did get 56 fantasy points last night. He's got really nice upside, 23% boom rating, 52-point projection, no ownership, which is really the thing that makes me interested in him tonight. How are you feeling about paying for Wemby, and are there any other Spurs on your radar?
Mostly Vassell. He's actually the one I'm getting to more than Wemby, just because he's cheaper and the usage has been there. Didn't do much last night, but still 37 minutes, so hard to hate that. Wemby's intriguing as a lower-owned option, but like I said earlier, Tatum now is going to be a really awesome play among the high-end forwards. So, and Wemby's center only at this point. Like if we could still play Wemby at forward, I would have more interest, but center only, there's a lot more opportunity cost with playing him. This isn't the best center slate, so I can see, looking his way for that reason. And like you said, they have no one to guard him. So I do think it's a good spot. I'm interested in getting to him. I'm just not sure how much I will be able to wind up with.
Yeah, I mean, Sabonis we'll talk about in a little bit. He is actually cheaper than Wemby, too. So that's another guy we have to think of. I don't even know if the ownership game really matters that much. And then obviously you have Giannis up top at 11.5. So, like, if it was a slate where Giannis was super chalky, yeah, then Wemby unowned at like 1,000 less. That's pretty interesting. But there are other options. And like you said, Tatum's there. We're going to talk about him next year. So Wemby is inviting. He is interesting at no ownership, but I don't know for sure if he's going to be the guy I'm circling. Tatum, I don't know if this projection's been updated or not. He's coming in obviously under 10K, and with Porzingis, and you said Jaylen Brown's out too.
Yeah, and Al Horford.
That's significant. Obviously, more than just Jason Tatum look good here, but Tatum looks very, very good. He looks like the best player for the Celtics. So yeah, how are you feeling about Tatum and the rest of the Boston plays?
Yeah, they also get Utah, which is one of the better matchups in the league. So Tatum looks like a smash. I think Luke Cornett is probably the best play on the Celtics, point per dollar wise. No Porzingis, no Horford. 4K flat, good per minute guy. Should play 20 plus minutes at a minimum. So I'm happy to get to him. It looks like, I assume he's going to be mega chalk, but I think it's pretty good chalk. Derek White and Drew Holiday are in. Both will get usage boosts without Porzingis and Brown too. So I think they're both pretty good plays. Holiday at 6'6", a little more expensive than he's been lately, but don't mind that. I don't think he'll be limited after sitting last night. I think that was more of a rest situation. Sam Hauser, another option here as a value for 4.3. Peyton Pritchard, I assume, will get a decent role, but he is 4.8. So with White and Holiday in, I don't think Pritchard's going to be a priority.
No, and Hauser he's a pretty scary play.
But I assume he'll start in place of Jaylen Brown, so the minute should be there.
Yeah, that's true. I think personally, I mean, I'm with you on Cornett at 4K flat, assuming he starts. He would look very, very good and be basically a lock for me. That's just good chalk that I wouldn't mind eating. I am interested to see once that ownership and projections end up updating how that changes Dylan Brooks's ownership. That will be interesting. But yeah, Tatum looks awesome. Derek White is probably my second favorite play behind Cornett. Hauser's in play, but I would be wary of that being chalky. And then obviously Drew is also fine. He would get more usage than he normally does, and it's obviously a really good matchup, but I never love playing Drew, and 6'6" isn't exactly cheap. So I'd probably go Tatum, or I'd go Cornett, White, Tatum. It's not like Tatum is really the third best play because he's the best raw points play Boston has to offer. Just in terms of value, that's how I would look at him tonight. But yeah,
also the Cornett thing completely nukes Landale as a potential value too.
Well, yeah, he's like 800 more. So, and we don't even know yet whether it's gonna be him or Jeff Green. So I think I'm with you there. I'm just gonna eat the Cornett chalk and move along.
That's another reason that getting to Wemby is going to be tougher if Cornett's occupying a center spot.
Yep, very, very true. I mean, we were in the same exact situation last night, honestly. What was the right call? I guess fading Duren, which is weird because when we found out that Jackson Davis was no longer starting, we didn't really want him as much, right? And then he ended up smashing. And Duren actually was fine. What was that, 38? So he was totally fine. But the path to success last night was not Duren and TJD. It was TJD and Jokic. So who knows if that's a similar path tonight, but Cornette is taking up one of those spots for me. On the other side are the Jazz. They kind of just spread everything out. They are at full strength. Even Walker Kessler is back. Well, not full strength because Lauri Markkanen is out still, and Taylor Hendricks isn't there. So there could be a little bit of value here, but I just don't know if it's going to be anything we really feel like we have to gravitate towards. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Kessler was the one when I ran, obviously before the Boston stuff, that I was getting to the most at 4.9, but I assume he's just going to go away because of the Cornette situation. 4.9, he's still a good play, especially if his ownership's now going to come down to single digits, which I imagine it will. He's solid, but certainly not a priority anymore. No one else is really cheap enough. Sexton, George, and Clarkson are all priced up. Collins is priced up. It's probably just Kessler or nothing for me, and I will likely wind up with nearly nothing.
Yeah, it's funny too. I mean, it's not a good matchup, at least when Boston's at full strength, it isn't. But in theory, Sexton and Collins and maybe even Keontae George remain pretty good plays. The prices haven't really budged, and they've been doing really well lately. So I would say they're okay tournament plays, but I don't think anybody on Utah is necessary to get to. All right, second to last game of the night, we got Timberwolves at the Clippers. This game is a 215 total. Timberwolves are 6.5-point road dogs. There is news to go over in this game. Obviously, Cat remains out for the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is questionable. Rudy Gobert is questionable. This is meaningful information. Kyle Anderson is questionable. Obviously, Naz Reid's prices come up to the point where I don't really think we can consider him on this slate at 7K. But at the same time, he is a god when he gets crazy minutes. So how are you feeling about the injury statuses of the Wolves, and how are you leaning based off of whether these guys end up playing or not?
I always just assume Edwards is going to play. I feel like he never misses games, so he should be in. He's priced up to 9.7. He's been kind of hovering around upper 8s to 9K for a while. He's not a bad play. It's not a good matchup, but you should be there for him without Towns, and I think his price is appropriate at this point. Reed played 42 minutes in the last game with Gobert and Cat out. Even at 7K, I will gladly take 40-plus minutes of Naz Reid. I don't know if we can project that, but it's reasonable to assume he's going to play massive minutes because they have no other bigs besides Luka Garza. So Naz Reid, I will be looking to if Gobert's Gobert in. I think he's a fine tournament play at 7.9. Alexander Walker played 39 in the last game. Don't mind that. If Kyle Anderson is out again. Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts. It's kind of complicated, but especially with this game starting at 10 Eastern. So I want to like some of these guys, but I'm not sure if we'll have the news in time.
Yeah, at this point, I think you're either playing for Rudy to be out and going with Naz maybe, or you're fading this team, most likely. I mean, Ant is always going to be a decent tournament play, and he's not going to be owned tonight. I don't think it's a great matchup. I don't really want him at this price. There's other guys I prefer. But I think, I mean, I don't love paying 7K for Naz, but if we think Rudy's going to be out, that could be an interesting play that probably would end up going completely overlooked on this slate. The Clippers on the other side also have pretty interesting injury news that could impact the slate significantly. Russell Westbrook remains out. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are both questionable. Obviously, one or both those guys being out would elevate James Harden quite a bit. Not a good matchup at all for any of these Clippers, but Harden would project very, very well and would probably garner quite a bit of ownership. But yeah, so how are you feeling about the situation? Do you have any kind of lean on these players, and who do you like, whether those guys are in or out?
Certainly Harden, like you said, is a standout. Even if one of them's out, he's just going to have the ball in his hands more and more usage and all that stuff. So even against Minnesota, I think that's a good play. I feel like they're going to be in. I feel like when they sat out the other day, it was a back-to-back situation. So I would be surprised if we do get this, but we'll see. Kawhi and George are kind of just flyers on this slate. Hard to make them priorities. Norm Powell is the primary beneficiary if one of them's out. He should see more minutes and more usage, but otherwise, yeah, it's probably just kind of Harden or nothing for me.
Yeah, worth noting, as is always the case, in 3 meetings with the Wolves on the year, Harden has averaged 33 fantasy points, which isn't great. He has shot 9 for 37 from the field. So methinks Mike Conley is not the most fun draw. Ant is a pretty good defender too. So I'm not going to fade Harden based off of past results or matchup alone. But like you said, if those guys are in, even more reason to not have interest. I like Norm Powell anyways, just because Russ is out. So at 5-1, you can do worse than Norm as a decent value with good usage. But if those guys are in, he's just less necessary. But if they're in, he also would not be as owned as he would be if they're out. All right, last game of the night, Bucks and Kings. It is the second best game as far as environment goes. 1 point spread, 235.5 game total. Very, very inviting. The problem is the best plays are very expensive, and even the secondary plays have seen their prices uptick. Malik Monk. But starting with the Bucks, Giannis is probable. Chris Middleton remains out forever, it seems. So how do you feel about Giannis here and Dame, and is anybody else on your radar for Milwaukee?
Yeah, I do like them both. Giannis, obviously, quite a bit more. Price tag's appropriate. But I can see this game kind of just flying past its total and being really close and high scoring, and you're certainly going to want something from it. Giannis, now that we have all this value, should be pretty easy to get to as well. So I'm happy to play him. The one I was getting to most is Malik Beasley, but I would expect him to just kind of become Sam Hauser once those projections update. So Beasley is probably a guy that's going to go away as a value. Not really sad about that either. So probably just Giannis and Lillard, maybe a dusting of Lopez, but kind of just the stars for the Bucks.
Yep, full agree on that one. Over the Kings side we go. Probably mostly the same case. We got Sabonis up top with a 56-point fantasy projection, 31% boom rating. He smashed last time he played the Bucks, 67 fantasy points. So it's not a bad matchup for him. Worth noting, Giannis had 63 fantasy points in that game too. So obviously they're both really good plays. Fox is still not expensive enough for who he's been over the last week or two. Or maybe he's just about right. Him and Dame are about the same price. But yeah, they both look really good. And then you do have your boy, Malik Monk. His price has come up, but still viable. Keegan Murray was at shoot around. He was questionable earlier in the day. If he plays at 5.5K, he's not the worst value play. And then Herter at 4.1K does stand out if Murray misses, but I don't think I'd go there if he doesn't.
I think Herter and Murray are kind of interesting pivots away from the mega chalk in those ranges. We talked about Dylan Brooks and Hauser and several other guys kind of between 4 and 6K that are going to be really popular. Herter and Murray are in the same range and look fine to me. Murray in particular, like you said. Don't mind that. With the Q tag, he should be almost unowned. If he's out, I guess like Harrison Barnes and Trey Lyles would look a little better, but don't really want to do either of those things. Sabonis, yeah, he looks a little too cheap. He's just unbelievable, and he's been amazing. So happy to get to him where I can. It's just going to be tough because of center only on this slate.
Yeah, and obviously if you're pairing anybody in these games, or even if you're going after one guy, that might mean you're entertaining fading somebody who looks really, really good, like Tatum, or means you're fading FVV or Kuz. So it really never feels good to fade guys that look so good like this. But when they're really high owned, it's something we do need to consider in tournaments. All right, real quick, let's go over the boom ratings here. Kuzma does come in with the best boom rating at DFS Hero with 38%. Projects really well. He leads away. But as far as guys with boom ratings and like guys you really want to target, who's the one guy that stands out that you want to either have want to be overweight on the field, or that you would lock into a single entry lineup?
Probably Dylan Brooks, mainly because he's going to be mega chalk and probably just eat that chalk. But I assume Cornette would be the best value on the slate now once projections update. So I'd probably label him as the building block.
Yeah, I'd agree Cornette. And then for like mid-range, I think for me, it's shaping up to be Kuz. I don't know if I feel like I need to play both Kuz and FVV on this slate, especially if I want to go get a stud. But you could make an argument to just go studless on this slate because there's a lot of good stuff in mid-range, or maybe, or Tatum is your stud at 9.7. All right, let's look at chalkiness here. Dylan Brooks does come in as the chalkiest play, I think, on that reason alone, and also because he's Dylan fucking Brooks. We could entertain fading him, or at least being severely underweight compared to the field. But Dylan Brooks aside, who here that is chalk are you not super excited to play, or you feel like you're going to be underweight or even fading?
I'll probably be under on Laravia. That just seems high for him. I know the minutes have been up lately, but I don't know. It's Laravia, and the slate now has better value than him. I don't think he'll be as popular as those projections say, but he's not a guy that I get super excited about.
Yeah, I mean, any Grizz guys that carry monster ownership, you certainly can entertain that. It's probably going to be Dylan Brooks for me. It's kind of weird that we're on opposite spectrums there with Dylan Brooks. I know he's a good play. I see that, but the ownership is giving me cause for pause. So I don't think I'm going to fully fade him, but I would be a little bit underweight compared to the field. All right, that's going to do it for us. Hopefully we helped you out today. If we did, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the DFS Build, our channel, so you can get alerted to future videos just like this. Thanks for watching, and